The Monkey is a new horror movie that'll be out in theaters this weekend and is directed by Osgood Perkins. And if that name sounds familiar, he recently just did Longlegs last year. In fact, the turnaround from then to now is pretty quick. This movie is coming out mere months after that film's release. And here we follow the story of a family that owns a wind-up monkey, and apparently every time you wind this up and it starts playing the drums attached to it, after it stops playing the drums, someone dies. Eventually, they are able to put a stop to this, but years later, it seems like there are more mysterious deaths happening, and it can all come back to that monkey. And that's all I'm really gonna say about it, because I don't want to give too much away about the plot and what's going on. I don't think the marketing also gives you too much beyond that basic premise, and I'd like to keep it that way. That's similar to what they did with Longlegs, where you got some inkling as to what's going on, but you had to watch the movie to figure out the rest. And that's something that's good about the marketing with this movie too. It sort of lends you to want to go check it out for yourself and see how that'll turn out. I enjoyed Longlegs quite a bit, in fact, and I gave it a very positive review at the time, and so naturally I was very excited to see what this movie will be like. This is not a Longlegs type of movie though. Whereas that was a slow burn horror thriller of sorts with, echoes of Seven and Zodiac, this is more of a dark comedy than a horror movie. In fact, a lot of it is very darkly funny, and there is a sense of self-awareness and surrealness to it that it fully embraces. And that's something that the movie establishes pretty early on, and it keeps to that until the end. It's a very over-the-top movie with a lot of very bizarre moments of laughter where something will happen that's really crazy or someone will die, and you can't help but watch that and just, laugh like that came out of nowhere. And again, the movie understands that tone very much so. It also is one of those things that establishes a wavelength pretty early on. If you are someone who is going in expecting something a little more serious, then there's a chance that you might not love what the monkey does. There is, however, the other possibility where you watch this and you are perfectly on the wavelength of what this is doing and you have a really great time with it. For my part, I was on board with what they were doing here, which again, I cannot stress enough, is incredibly bizarre. You will get a lot of very gory deaths here, absolutely. Some of it is pretty freakish, and there are some very unique ones as well. But there is such a sense of fun and entertainment to it that I had a blast watching the movie. But Osgood Perkins does a really good job of directing it once again. He is very good at making some of those sequences pop, and this time with producer James Wan at the helm of it as well. There is a sense to it that comes from a team up like that. This is based on the short story by Stephen King, and that's also something that adds to it. Like when you see the creative backing behind this movie's existence, so much of it makes sense and so much of it suddenly falls into place, and the momentum that this thing has is non-stop all the way to the end. The performances are also tapped very much into that surreal, bizarre nature of the entire story. From Theo James, who is trying to figure out, how to fix all of this along with his brother. Whenever you meet some of the other family members as well, there is this sense of eccentricity to them and just something that is very off-kilter and doesn't make a lot of sense rationally speaking. I'm being very vague about what else is in the movie for a reason, if it sounds repetitive, because I don't want to give, again, too much away, because the marketing doesn't give too much away. The entire reason surrounding what's happening and why it's happening is something that you'll have to discover with the movie. Once you do get to the realization of what's happening, some parts of that make sense, some parts of it don't, and some parts of it do act against the tone of the movie, especially because there are some emotional beats it's going for with some characters, and some of those don't really land as well as I think they could, because there's a couple of things that are established as the movie is progressing, especially with Theo James, and there is an outcome that you want out of it. I think that there are some stronger ways of doing it because it feels a little too quick in some cases, and sometimes it feels a bit too abrupt. And I do feel like that did take away from some more impact that it could have had. There's also a subplot that's going on the side, which feels a little tacked on. Like, this is another thing that seems to be happening, which is leading into this, which doesn't really add up to too much by the time you're at the end of it. But there is somewhat of a connection that they try to showcase, like, actually, because of this is there. I don't know how people will feel about that, because it does feel like another thing that is added into the mix, but it doesn't feel like there's much of an outcome to that particular thing. So, make of that what you will. That being said, by the end of The Monkey, I still had a very good time with it, and it is one movie that I think you should just go see and have a fun time with. It's a very self-aware and very much a, self-referential movie that constantly makes fun of itself, and it knows that it's making fun of itself. And while there are issues to some of it not taking itself as seriously as it could when it comes to some of the emotional beats that it's going for, at the end of the day, it's still a fairly enjoyable time and one that I recommend checking out. And I'm gonna give The Monkey a 7.5 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.